Lots of people would say, oh, this has nothing much to do with actually making a game. There's also the 50% of the battle is making your game, 50% of the battle is selling your game. My name is Kwek. I'm the founder of Ysbryd Games, which is a boutique publisher of independent games. A publisher is different from a developer. Developers, literally, they make the game. They draw art, they write code, and they design levels. Whereas publishers tend to focus more on the business side of selling the game, like marketing and PR, online and physical distribution of the game, quality assurance, and more. Where publishers are concerned, you may be more familiar with the supermassive publishers like Activision or Electronic Arts, but there's lots of smaller outfits similar to Ysbryd. At the scales that we operate, we tend to use labels like indie games, boutique games. If this were an F&B business, you'd probably hear the label artisanal right about now. There's a chance you've heard of our best-selling titles like the cyberpunk bartending game known as Valhalla. You're put in the shoes of a bartender in that world, and your job is to talk to clients, understand their needs, and serve them a drink that could very well alter the course of their lives. Another game that's done well for us is World of Horror. This game puts you in the shoes of someone living in a Japanese seaside town known as Shiokawa. You find yourself surrounded by deformed humans and grotesque creatures. What makes a good game is seriously dependent on what sort of audience you intend to serve. For example, a visual novel is often wasted on people who don't value storytelling with words or people who simply hate reading. In the Ysbryd portfolio, a good game is any game that elicits a solid emotional reaction and leaves a mark on you after you finish the game. Maybe for better, maybe for worse. If the game didn't compel you to finish it, or you felt nothing after the credits roll, then I think it's kind of tragic that we didn't produce a game worthy of your time. My interest in games started when I was very young, like 4 or 5 years old. The first system my family owned was a Sega Mega Drive, or Genesis as they call it in North America. So that was a lot of my childhood spent with Sonic the Hedgehog. But that system was the first to open my eyes to games with compelling, thoughtful content like Shining Force and Phantasy Star. After PSLE, my mom bought a PlayStation. And I think that playing games like Final Fantasy VII and Metal Gear Solid, it sounds like hyperbole to say this now in 2024, but those games really revolutionized how powerful and emotional storytelling in games could be. I went to Boston University after finishing my national service, but at that time it wasn't in my head to work in games, so I did what your typical 20-something-year-old kid from Singapore going to university does, and I studied business management. A business management program, it helped me prepare myself as a generalist for entrepreneurial tasks, able to handle bookkeeping and legal contracts while keep thinking about revenue sustainability, product management, marketing and PR goals, keeping all of this constantly, juggling all of this stuff in mind. So over here we have a selection of merchandise from the best-selling games from Ysbryd's portfolio. So mostly you'll see stuff from Valhalla, the cyberpunk bartender game, as well as the horror game World of Horror. Over here we have Jill Stingray from Valhalla. Is kind of our best-selling character. What I'm holding is a figurine called a Nendoroid. We also made our own plushes for Jill and for her boss, Dana. What I would describe as our core skill set, but we learned a lot of these things along the way, and helping our developers realize, translate their creations into physical merchandise, it's a very interesting journey. So this thing that I'm holding is a deluxe edition of the game Valhalla that we also released on Switch and PlayStation. And we also have add-ons for that, such as the art book that you see here. This one is for the Japanese version of the game. We did a separate Japanese release. For the other game, World of Horror, we've worked closely with a company called Fangamer, and they have helped us put together a lot of apparel items for World of Horror. So this is a small selection of the merchandise we worked on to date, and fans are really always happy to see high quality merch come out that helps them really represent their love for the game. And likewise, developers always they feel really heartened when they see fans enjoying that merchandise. So we do everything we can to provide that for the fans. Lots of people would say, oh, this has nothing much to do with actually making a game. And in terms of actually developing the game, I agree to some extent, but there's also the 50% of the battle is making your game, 50% of the battle is selling your game. So, the bottom line for me is that studying business management helped create a nice systemic foundation for development partners to rely on me to do my job. And so far, it's worked out well. 2 friends from school came along to talk to me about seriously making a video game. Even though we knew nothing about the industry except, we had this passion for playing games, that was a bit of a challenging journey, but it was the start of what would become the local game developer, Witching Hours Studios. We're here at the Battle Brew Productions office. I'm hanging out with Sean and Dawn over here. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Sean. I run Battle Brew Productions. I've been a game designer my entire career. The game I think we are most well known for right now though is Cuisineer, which is an action RPG with a restaurant that launched late last year.
And hi, my name is Don and I'm actually one of the co-founders of True World Studios. We are actually a studio just at level 8 upstairs. We are about 3 years old already, and we actually used to do a lot of projects for businesses using the game engine, do virtual reality, augmented reality. And now we're actually developing our own game called Unyuda, and it's a first-person shooter, and looking forward to full launch later part of the year.
So Dawn and I actually go back really far back. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I know Brian since secondary school. That's like a really long time ago.
2 decades?
Yeah, so I mean, we were in Boy Scouts together. In the same scout troop, and then I think along the way our education started diverging. I mean, we went to different schools, different universities, but along the way in our careers, I went into a AAA big studio, and Brian started his own studio, right? And then I subsequently went into government, and somehow our paths crossed again, where we told ourselves, hey, let's work out something to kind of bring the games community together.
I would say less of a professional thing. It's more like we enjoy the same kind of games.
The taste of games have evolved, and I think for us we are kind of like the millennial generation. Now we already have the Gen Zs in the workforce. Their preference for games are also quite different. So I think this is where we sometimes have this kind of conversation to kind of appreciate that diversity we have in the industry.
Well, I think generally so. Obviously there's people who won't get along, right? So I think the way I'd phrase it. But I think even social niceties aside, instead of competition, sometimes it's easier to collaborate instead, right? If you're in the same genre, in fact, it's a great thing. Like if your games can cross-promote. So we've definitely cross-promoted with other studios, with other games. And I think that's just a better way to do business even. I think what I'm thankful about though is that a lot of this isn't just professional. A lot of it really does, I think, come from the heart, and if you can help each other, why not, right? So I think that's the general attitude, mostly because in fact I think the industry is sometimes unforgiving and tough, right? So we've seen at this point quite a few friends companies not quite make it. It's always tough. So I think if you can help, who knows, maybe they make it big and they can help you out in the future, right? So I think that's a better way to do it.
So, Witching Hours' magnum opus was a tactical RPG, which some of you may have heard of. It's called Masquerada Songs and Shadows. Masquerada was a fully voice-acted adventure, and in many ways we were extremely proud of what we put together in terms of the narrative, the emotional power, and artistic value of the game. But unfortunately, Masquerada simply didn't hit the mark with its audience for various market-related reasons. And we had to shut the studio down about a year after Masquerada arrived on consoles like PlayStation and Xbox. This was in 2017. So that was a very low point of my life, both professionally and personally. The Singapore games industry has been active for at least 2 decades. And we have a history of renowned international game developers and publishers setting up offices here, like Ubisoft from France, Bandai Namco and Tecmo Koei from Japan, and Electronic Arts, 2K from the USA. Many Singaporeans have cut their teeth at these places, learning how to develop games and sell games, and quite a few have set out to do their own indie adventure and make their own game. Singaporeans absolutely have the skills and talent needed to release amazing and successful games like these. Currently, the riskiest part of development for Singaporeans is finding money to make a game prototype, which can be difficult to secure because financiers are reluctant to take a punt on someone who has never shipped a game before. This life as a games publisher can be pretty varied and interesting, even if at first blush you say, oh, you sell games, you're all doing all the business stuff. Doesn't sound terribly exciting compared to creative work like making a game, you know. But I feel that there's a lot of different things for a publisher to do, even if it's not literally working on the game itself. And in my experience, I actually find myself providing a lot of input to the game developers, helping them shape the game in a way that makes sense for the audience they want to chase.